The dialers are being provided by the client. The dialers could be like Ring Central, for example. There's Dialpad, there's Grasshopper, and even Zoom. Zoom now has Zoom calls or Zoom phone, I guess.
Anyway, today we're talking about VAs and frequently asked questions. Who better to ask those questions to than Gerard, the VA expert with Remote Assistant Scout? How you doing, Gerard?
I'm great today. Thank you again for the opportunity to be invited here in your Loan Officer Growth podcast.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. Frequently asked questions on hiring a VA for a loan officer. So I guess the first question would be, what can a VA do for me? What can a VA do to help me as a loan officer increase my business, give me more freedom? Like what are some of the things that you're seeing right now that loan officers are having their VAs do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess there are top 3 activities that loan officers would delegate to virtual assistants. And the number one or the top activity really is doing some phone calls. And, these phone calls would entail, calling out realtors, home buyers, clients. It's either present clients, new clients, past client database. So it doesn't really matter. And some loan officers would also delegate calls to divorce attorneys, investors, CPAs, to the virtual assistant as well. So that's really the number one activity that I've seen in most of our lender clients. And along with the phone calls, of course, would be, email marketing, calendar management, and as well as, CRM management. So CRM, that's either, Salesforce, Go High Level, Be in Touch. So those are the most common CRMs that, virtual assistants use. There's also HubSpot. So I can say that those really are the top 3 to 4 activities that most of our lender clients are delegating to virtual assistants.
So back to realtor calls and divorce attorneys and things like that. So basically they're calling to set up appointments for the loan officer?
Yes. Setting appointments, these are cold calling. So literally what happens here is that loan officers would provide a list to the virtual assistants to call, as well as a dialer. So these are, I guess this is also one of the frequently asked questions, since that we outsource or vet candidates or virtual assistants here in the Philippines. I mean, how are they supposed to call people in the United States? So the dialers are being provided by the client. The dialers could be like Ring Central, for example. There's Dialpad, there's Grasshopper, and even Zoom. Zoom now has Zoom calls or Zoom phone, I guess.
And phone burner?
Yeah, phone burner too. So typically, cold calling this realtor, setting up those appointments, plotting them into their calendar, doing some rebuttals, facing objections. So if indeed you're somebody who's wanting to increase your realtor relationships and later, increase your realtor referrals, and then this is one strategy that you could do and, double yourself. I mean, if you're reluctant to do those cold calling, and then a virtual assistant can stand in for you and do those phone calls.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And plus, no matter how busy you get as a loan officer, your calls are still getting done consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And as I've mentioned previously, it's not just really about those realtor calls. I mean, your virtual assistant could also act as, a receptionist that, that could take inbound calls for you. I guess it's been a practice by loan officers that or top producing loan officers that, they really need to answer or have somebody in the office and answer a call within, 5 seconds.
Right.
And that is, another effective strategy that they can do to, to do some lead generation and get those clients right away working for you.
Definitely. There's nothing worse than somebody calling and hitting voicemail.
Mm-hmm. And I've done calling past clients before as well. And, trust me, there's really gold in it. But that would really depend in your market. If it's really a good time for refinancing, and then, calling those past client database for at least, your clients who were happy with your service, that would be a huge thing for you guys.
Oh, definitely. Very cool. Very cool. So you mentioned a little bit, like, where do we find, if I'm a loan officer thinking about hiring a virtual assistant, where do I find one?
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of online channels where you can find a virtual assistant. So I guess the most common is Upwork, upwork.com, upwork.com. You can search for or vet candidates on your own or DIY, do it yourself. Not just really on the administrative tasks, but there are different areas as well where you can hire a virtual assistant for, like, doing some digital marketing for you, video editing, social media. So there's a lot of talent there in Upwork. And another one would be onlinejobs.ph. And of course, Remote Assistant Scout. We specialize in helping loan officers find their virtual assistant. And I guess, that's our difference in the market because that is our niche. I've been a mortgage virtual assistant, so I know exactly the ins and outs of the mortgage industry. And I know and I understand how the mortgage industry works and how referrals is, or building relationships is kind of important in this industry.
Right. So let's say I have a VA. How do I pay them?
Mm-hmm. So there's different channels, and today's technology is pretty, it's pretty easy. I mean, there's PayPal, there's Zoom.com, Zoom, that is spelled out XOOM.com. And actually, we don't do Venmo. We don't have Venmo here in the Philippines. That is, the most common question as well. We don't do Venmo. We don't have Zelle, but there are alternatives on there like PayPal, Zoom.com, Remitly, and there's another one that I
Wise?
could remember.
Wise.
Wise, yeah. Wise.com, WISE.
Yeah, that's actually a really good one.
And
So,
for payments, you would never believe it, but the standard rate of virtual assistant nowadays, especially if the activities would just really entail on the admin stuff, like with the phone calls, with the emails, CRM management, calendar management, or maybe a bit of basic social media, they may typically run between $5 to $7 per hour, depending on their experiences. However, if you're wanting a technical VA, technical means social media, or the advanced social media, creating graphics for you, video editing, YouTube management, or SEOs or Facebook ads, they may run typically between $10 to $12 per hour, just for
okay.
your information.
Yep. So $5 to $7 an hour for a good caller
Mm-hmm.
and admin, somebody that can answer the phones.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So what a lot of loan officers will ask, that seems really low. Why is that?
Mm-hmm. Actually, we have a different I don't know how to put it in words, but what I can share, guys, is that this is a very, a good offer to virtual assistants because, for example, you could just really expect, or a blue collar worker here in the Philippines, the starting rate per day is just really mm, around $8 per hour. I mean, per day, or
Okay.
possibly 8 to 10 per day. So compare that to the offer of, $5 per hour. So if you're going to multiply it by 10 on a full-time basis, and then that's already 40 compared to $8 or $10 per day.
Right. So the cost of living is very different in the Philippines.
Yeah.
The that's interesting. Yeah. The other opportunity or benefit of the virtual assistant is they get to work from home, right? So they're working from their home office.
Yes. So this is something that we always check that they have their own dedicated office for working, and there's really no outside noise whatsoever. And since they're doing phone calls, so they're expected to have their own headset. So these are the items that are being provided by the virtual assistant. So the technology will be from their end, the internet connection, computers, headset. This is something that clients don't need to provide.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
they're
Yeah.
expected to be fully equipped with the right technology for working.
Nice. And so do they work the graveyard shift? They work the same hours as we would work? Like, let's say we're Eastern or Central time. When would the
They're
VAs work?
expected to.
Yep.
So they're expected to work during your United States operational hours. So typically, virtual assistants working for U.S. clients, we work on a graveyard shift. So right now it's 11:24 p.m. here in the Philippines, which would translate to 10:24 a.m. in Texas.
Okay.
However, typically for example, there could be tasks that would not really require them to work on your operational hours. So some virtual assistants could work daytime here and not on a graveyard shift. But if the activities would really entail coordinating with clients, calling realtors, so they're expected to work on
Okay.
your operational hours.
Very cool. So let me think of some other questions that people typically ask. Do you have a contract with them? How does that work?
No, basically, that would depend on the situation. For example, if you are working with an agency who manages a virtual assistant and then there's sort of a contract, I believe there's a 1 month or 2 month contract with them. However, if you're going to be hiring directly, and then, it's very usual that there's really no contract in between, except if you want to do some confidentiality clauses for your protection and for your company's protection, and then you can do provide a contract. But I guess your question is leaning towards a locked-in period. So there's really no locked-in period here. So that's a downside of working as a virtual assistant, because we could have this great job now with great pay, but we don't know, maybe next week we don't have that kind of opportunity.
Right. But it
So there's no
also,
locking period, but for contracts, that would just depend on you. But contract is really leaning towards, those confidentiality clauses.
yep. It also works in the benefit, like if somebody's not working out, you're not, the loan officer is not under contract to keep them, because
Oh no.
it's the same here in the US. If somebody's not doing their job, they're going to end up getting fired.
Yeah.
So interesting. So let's say I'm a loan officer and I only want a VA to work 2 hours a day. Is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. That is, like the expected minimum hours that a virtual assistant could actually work for each client. However, for expectations, since, there's just, the minimum hours, so you could expect the virtual assistant is kind of like working with somebody else. You know what I mean? You are sharing the virtual assistant, because for economic reasons, of course, the virtual assistant needs to complete the 8 or 10 hour workload each day. So sometimes you can really expect them to work on your specific hours. Like, for example,
Right.
phone calls to realtors is being recommended to be done in the morning, right? So sometimes if we are on a 10-hour rate or offer, and then you may need to be, open to having virtual assistants who could work in the afternoons for you and do the phone calls.
So basically, you can, like you with Remote Assistant Scout, you could help a loan officer find somebody that works 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day or
Oh,
6
yeah.
hours a day, whatever they're kind of looking for.
As a matter of fact, in the last 3 months, I guess 80% or 75% of our clients are wanting to hire virtual assistants for 10 hours per week or 2 hours per day.
Oh, 2 hours a day and 10 hours a week total.
Or sometimes it could be split. Like I've hired or we've helped loan officers who's wanting to have the VA work 10 hours per week, but like the VA needs to work like three hours each day instead, or 3 hours Mondays through Wednesdays, and then an hour on a Thursday, if that makes sense, depending on the virtual assistant schedule too.
So let's say you help me hire a VA. How do I get them trained?
So our team does the training. So it's actually included in our package, because then again, this is one of the expectations that we set to each client, that at the end of the day, we cannot guarantee that the virtual assistant would have an actual mortgage experience, or at least, experience working with mortgage lenders.
Right.
So depending on the task, really, but we train on getting the virtual assistant do the phone calls, either through a loan officer, to realtors, as well as, to home buyers. So it's included into the package that we provide.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. To make it a lot easier, because typically, loan officers don't really have the time to train virtual assistants, right?
Yep. And so how would I manage their tasks?
So there's really a lot of platforms available to manage, or to delegate tasks to the virtual assistant, at least in an organized level. So we have Asana, ASANA. So you guys can check it out. So Asana is a platform wherein you can assign tasks to the virtual assistant along with the deadlines. So it comes with with commentaries on there, and the virtual assistant could basically click a button that says it's done, and then you'll be alerted that in real time via email that this activity has been done by the virtual assistant already, or has been accomplished. And at the end of the day, you could actually see that that there would be tasks that are completed, undone, in process. So there's kind of like that feature in Asana. And again, at the end of the day, it's just really all about the results, right? So for example, before the day would start, or before the VA's day would start, so you could send them some delegation, or at least, for example, a list of people to call. And then it's quite expected for the virtual assistant to send you guys an end of day report. So this is non-negotiable. And, this would give them that atmosphere of accountability that I need to provide results for my clients, you know what I mean, and set your standards from there.
Right.
So those are ways that you can manage a virtual assistant, because then again, we are working remotely, and on a virtual assistant standpoint, they're expected to work independently, or at least without 100% supervision from the client. And that's really the idea. So that's the ideal working relationship of clients in the United States, and as well as, virtual assistants, that you can just assign tasks before their day starts, and, get everything completed at the end of the day, with output, with feedback, and what have you.
Yeah, I love the end of day report. So you know exactly what got accomplished for that day. Because really it is. Yeah, it's just about the results. That's what matters.
And there are also platforms like, timedoctor.com, where it takes screenshots of the virtual assistant's computer, and tracked their activities all throughout the day. But this is something that we don't recommend, because who likes being monitored like whole day on what's happening on your computer, right? In reality, you yourself as a client, you don't want to be monitored by your company as to what your activities are. But for as long
Right.
as, they provide the actual expected results, and then, everything is totally all right.
Yep. All that matters is the results.
But it's case to case basis.
Hmm.
People are different.
True. Very true. So what about I know we don't have much more time, but what about accents?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a very usual question. I guess accents is really a subjective thing, but we hold, or our agency hold high standards in terms of the English language. And English is a medium of instruction here in the Philippines since childhood, or since, elementary days here in the Philippines. So everybody speaks English here very well. But I
Yep.
guess with the accent, it's sort of like an objective thing. I could still remember one client who's living in a state where there's really no diversity. So she was very specific about, the accents and what have you. So yeah, that's a valid question, really.
Yep. Well, it's interesting because I've found there's so many VAs in the Philippines that I would think they were just sitting in the desk next to me here in the US. I mean, I can't tell any kind of accent. And then, but we've all gotten phone calls through some company and it sounds like they're not here. But I think a lot of that is the sound of them maybe not having a really good headset, or I don't know, but I haven't seen any issues like that myself.
hmm So that's the reason why it's really quite a requirement to have, like, a quiet environment and a good working headset
Right.
for the virtual assistant. And again, just have to reiterate that we hold high standards in terms of the English language, or the way that, the virtual assistant would converse, you know, especially in the interviews. I mean,
Right.
you yourself would determine. I mean, it's really part of the application process that these candidates would be sending out their voice recordings. So at least you guys would have a preview as to how they sound. And basically, we can just do a mock call later and see how they would go
Right.
with the call flow.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at Remote Assistant Scout? Like, not what you do, but the process. If I'm a loan officer and I talk to you and I want to hire you to help me find a VA, what are you going to do? How's that process look?
Yeah, so typically, again, we only place virtual assistants to loan officer clients. So moving forward, the virtual assistant would be working directly with you and your team. So we won't be having any access to any of your database, to any of your workflow, to any of your contact or clients' contact information. Later, literally, that would just do you and the virtual assistant. So what we do here is we vet candidates depending on the client's needs, and we usually send the top 3 to 5 candidates to our clients, along with the candidates' resumes, their voice recordings, and disc profiles for your review. And after a review, you can decide from there as to whether, hey, Gerard, just want to speak to everybody and give them equal chances. Or, hey, Gerard, I'm just interested in speaking to 2 people or 1 person, totally up to you. And after that, we could set up everything for the final interviews with the preferred candidates. We conduct final interviews via Zoom conference, and typically the preferred candidates will just be hopping into our conference one after the other. We'll be there. Our team will be there assisting you with questions. If you don't know it, if you don't know what to ask, and we could also send you the list of sample questions that you guys could look into for reference and information. And then
Nice.
after the interviews, that's where we finalize the offer, set the start date for the VA, and we're good to go. And
And
also we
then,
do the training again. So
yes.
the training actually commences during the first 3 days of the virtual assistant working with you. So we'll be spending 4 hours each day with a virtual assistant. There's a total of 12 hours, and that's already included in the package. So no extra cost to it.
Very cool. So what did I forget to ask you? Anything? Can you think of anything? Or did we pretty much cover it?
Yeah. I guess we covered the major questions
Yes.
that loan officers would typically ask me during our what you call this,
So
strategy call.
let's say they're interested in contacting you and setting up a strategy call. How would they go about doing that?
Yes, you can go to www.remoteassistantscout.com. So that is spelled out REMOTE assistant scout SCOUT.com.
Cool.
There will be a
Remote
link
assistance.
that's going to be provided under this page
Nice.
for
So
you
they can get
to
a
check
free
out.
strategy call, talk to the team,
Mhm.
see what they might be able to do to help them. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it would serve as a consultation call if this would indeed something that you could do and work for your business. So.
Very cool.
Oh,
Again, thank you, Gerard. Gerard with remoteassistantscout.com. It is awesome having you on. Great at, you answering frequently asked questions. We're going to have to do this again because I know there's so many more different questions that I didn't touch on. So we'll do a part 2 coming up soon.
thank you again for today. And yeah, you guys can check out again www.remoteassistantscout.com. And our team is on standby to answer any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Gerard.